Hi guys, hi, how's it going? How you doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today I am doing an episode of Repurchase or Pass, Repurchase or Nah. I don't know. It's a type of video that it has been made popular in my humble opinion by Miss Emily, who is busy nurturing her brand new baby here on the platform at Emily's Makeup Bag. It's her channel name. I love her so much. She's done these so many times, and I know that there are other people out here on the platform that have done it. I just can't remember who. And the first time I did it way wrong, and I rouletted a number, picked a number, and then went through my collection and picked every fourth flippin' palette that was in my collection. I have like 200 and something palettes. So I had so many palettes to go over with you guys in that first video, and it was long and drawn out, and I hated every moment of it. But lately, the last two, this one including the last one that I did, I just randomize 10 numbers and pick up those palettes based on how the palettes lay in my inventory. And so I have 10 palettes to go over with you today that we talk about in terms of would I repurchase it today or no. And I hope that you enjoy the video because you've liked them before in the past, and I have a lot of fun doing it, and I have a lot of fun looking at palettes I've purchased in the past and deciding whether I would purchase it today if it came out today, knowing what I know, how my aesthetics have changed, all those things. Some of them are newer palettes that I've purchased, and my mind has been changed. So if that sounds something like you're interested in, please keep on watching. For those of you new here, hi, my name is Donna. I'm a lover of all things high-end, colorful beauty and self-care. I also work in the beauty industry as a field leader for Ulta Beauty. I get a lot of education in my position, y'all, and I'd like to bring you that education out here on my platform. But ultimately, I'm just out here talking about makeup because I love to talk about makeup, and I'm assuming if you're here, you also like to talk about makeup. And I'm hoping that you find what you're looking for in my channel and you'll want to subscribe before you go. I'd love to welcome you into my YouTube fam. And with that said, let's roll into this repurchase or now. All right, so I have 10 palettes to go over with you guys today. And as stated in the intro, I have something like 258 palettes or something like that. And I just randomize 10 different numbers and pull those palettes out of my collection as they are in a spreadsheet and are synced up to a number. I pull them out dependent on the number that my random number generator pulls. So these are the palettes that I randomly picked, and the first one is this. This is the Space Case Cosmetics Quad, and that's all it says is just Space Case Cosmetics Quad. And truth be told, I did get this in an Ipsy, so I didn't purchase it in the first place, but I do have a few singles from this brand that I really ultimately enjoy a lot, so I was really excited to get this quad in an Ipsy. Would I purchase this on my own? Probably not. These are just, I mean, they're beautiful. Don't get me wrong. They're beautiful shadows, but there's nothing really super spectacular about them, if I'm honest with you. And I have plenty of these kinds of shimmers in my collection. This one's more of a kind of like a satin shade, and this one's more of a kind of like a satin shade, and then these two are straight up shimmer. But you can see, I mean, even that pink shimmer, there's not a whole lot that it's doing for me. So I don't think that this is worth it, and I do believe that this palette was something like, I don't know, $20 or $28 for 4 shimmer shadows if you purchased it on its own. I have done a palette roulette, which is another series on my channel in which I am reviewing all the palettes that are in my collection. I have been doing this since the beginning of time, honestly. I think I was a good 6 months into my channel when I started it. I'm now almost 6 years in, and I've been doing one every week or every few weeks on my channel since I started. So I have a palette roulette on every single one of these palettes. I will link it down in the description box for you to peruse through if you so choose. The cost and all the things about this palette are in that video, and I just don't think that this is one that I would say is worth the money. $28 for a quad is really a hard pill to swallow in the first place, but $28 for a quad of shadows that you probably have in 15 other palettes in your collection, or 40 or 80 if you have a if you have a palette collection like mine, it's just not worth it. The next palette I have is this. This is the By Beauty Bay New Romantic palette. And when I first got interested in Beauty Bay Cosmetics, it was that blue and purple palette that they had with the like moon and the like, I don't know, crystal ball or something on the front of it. I can't remember what it was called, but I had it in my cart. It was $7. It was on sale, and I never pressed buy. I never pulled the trigger on it, and I have never regretted something so much in my life. I want that palette so bad. It is the FOMO palette for me. It is the one that got away. It is whatever, $7 and never pulled the trigger. So when this one came out, and this is what the color story of it was, and I love reds and pinks and corals on my eyes, I knew I needed to pick it up. I knew that this was going to be the palette that I really embarked on Beauty Bay eyeshadows with, and I couldn't be happier that I brought it into my collection. I think my review of this palette, I was like, this could easily replace Modern Renaissance for not only the color story, but also better performance, in my humble opinion. And ABH is one of my favorite brands. So this was like, I don't think I've picked up Modern Renaissance since I brought this into my collection for a pink, a red, any kind of tone that you might find in Modern Renaissance. I go to this palette first. So yes, I absolutely would. And to make it that much better, these are like so inexpensive. I think it's $20, $16 or $20 for this 20-pound eyeshadow palette. So amazing quality, and the pans are giant and they're really inexpensive. So yes, I would absolutely repurchase that palette. This is the Rose Metals palette, and this is one of their new palettes, new formulation, new all the things. Doesn't come with that stupid crappy brush that the ABH palettes used to come from in the first place. Comes with 2 less shades, but the pans are much bigger than in the old ABH palettes. And I really thought I was going to love this eyeshadow palette. And granted, I don't hate it by any means. It is a wonderful eyeshadow formula. I still find that it has a lot of the kick up that ABH shadows are known for, but far less than ABH shadows are known for. And the shimmers are, I feel like, a lot less chunky and a lot more melt into your skin, a lot less exacerbating of texture, if that makes any sense. But I did not love this color story. For whatever reason, it does look beautiful and it looks like something that I would love, but I just did not have a great time with this color story. I felt like every single eye look that I did with this palette looked very almost industrial, almost dirty industrial. So I definitely would not repurchase this palette if given the choice. The next one is the Wayne Goss Luxury Eye Palette in Imperial Topaz. Now, this is one that came to me because of my Beautylish Lucky Bag that I get every single year. And it's also a palette that I never eyeballed from the very beginning. I like Wayne Goss brushes, but I've never looked at his eyeshadows as something that I wanted to get into my collection. Now I think he has like duos, blush duos, and those I have looked at in the past, but this was definitely not something that was on my radar. Given the choice, I think that this is I don't know if I would repurchase it. I think that the biggest reason why I wouldn't repurchase it is because this shadow I will never ever use. It is like glitter that just kind of flies all over the place. As soon as you stick your finger in it, there's glitter everywhere, and I hate that. And 3 of the 5 other shades in here are kind of satiny and don't really have more of a matte base to them in the way that they need to if you want to use them all over your like crease area or something. I use a lot of satins in my crease area if they are made just so. These ones are too, I think, metallic to use in my crease area, and that's a personal opinion. I know that that's not everybody's opinion, but reasons why I would purchase it is because these are magical eyeshadows. They perfectly blend. There is next to no skill that you have to put into these shadows to get them to work for you. So I don't know that I would replace this one. I would repurchase this one, but I am intrigued by more from Wayne Goss because of my experience with this palette. So I don't know if that's a yes or a no. Yes, I would repurchase a palette from Wayne Goss because his shadows are magical. No, I wouldn't repurchase this one specifically because it doesn't really suit my makeup aesthetic. So I guess I'm going to put this in the no category. The next one is this one, and this is the Colored Rain Vivid Pigments. So when I first came onto the makeup scene, you know, almost 6 years ago now, or just about 6 years ago now, the Colored Rain Vivid Pigments were single shadows that were like square shaped, and you had to buy them singly and then put them into like a magnetic palette if you wanted them. Then they came out with this. This is a $60 eyeshadow palette, which is absolutely insane. Would I repurchase this? I think that the answer to this one would also be no, because I feel like these are all matte, and I love that about this palette, and they are pretty opaque. They've definitely got a great opacity to them, but they're kind of patchy. They're not the best pigments that I have in my collection. They're not the best, you know, it's not the best rainbow color story that I have for super impactful, beautiful matte pigments. They're very patchy, and they get hard pan so easy. Almost every single one of these shades down here on the bottom has hard pan on it. I've had to scratch them, and you can see that I've had to scratch. This just isn't the best. These aren't the best. I think at one point in time they were not nominated, that's the wrong word, but like nominated the best, and they're just not. But I did hear that when they went into a palette, their formulation changed from what they were when they were, you know, square singles in a single pan that you purchase. The next one I have is this. This is the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette, and this is a palette that honestly I had zero desire to pick up. And I actually picked it up because of one of you, because I have a very good friend in the comment section who I banter back and forth with all the time. You guys probably have seen the paragraphs full of comments down there between the two of us. The peer pressure to pick this up was real. The more and more I use this palette, the longer it is in my collection, the more I love the palette. So I'm really excited that I got talked into it and maybe criticized it a little bit too harshly in my palette roulette, but I love this palette and I would definitely repurchase this palette. That is only the second palette in my repurchase pile. Wow, I made some really bad decisions, I guess. This could rank right up there with bad decision. This is the Natasha Denona Pastel Palette, and this is what it looks like. And if you know anything about my channel, you probably know that the answer is no. I would not repurchase this. And even though it looks like this eye look could have been done with this palette, it is not the palette that this came out with. And these are actually from my Blend Bunny Surge palette, which has neon colors down at the bottom, and that's what these are. These shadows show up absolutely not as pigmented as these shadows on my eye. And this is with a white base. That is it. I put them on like I would any other eyeshadow. They are so pigmented. These are absolutely not. These are absolutely not neons. These are absolutely pastels, and they absolutely perform like a pastel. And I should have never picked up this palette because I don't love pastels. There are some really great standout shadows in this palette. Like I love this mint here. I love this kind of corally color. This pink is beautiful. This chartreuse is actually a really pretty chartreuse, but it's a very dull chartreuse. So there are some beautiful standout shadows in here, but there are also some duds. This yellow is absolutely atrocious, and it gets hard pan so easily, and there's hard pan on it currently. Like this would rank, and this one is beautiful too, by the way. I would probably rank this least favorite, even over like Circo Loco, which also was not a favorite palette that I have in my Natasha Denona collection. This is probably a preference thing. It probably is, but I have heard that sentiment from many people that own the Pastel Palette. So I just hesitate to believe it's just me. The next palette I have is the Too Faced Natural Nudes palette. And this palette actually kind of shocked me. I'm not a Too Faced fan, but I was absolutely enamored by this palette, and I would absolutely 100% repurchase it. I love that the mattes are the larger pans and that there's a corresponding shimmer to every single matte in here. So if you just wanted to not think about the eyeshadow look that you were putting on your face, you could absolutely do it with this palette. You don't have to bounce around, but you absolutely can. But it's set up in a way that you absolutely don't have to. I also love that the mattes are bigger because you go through far less shimmer than you do mattes in an eye look for the most part, or at least most of the population performs their eye looks in that way. I love that it's got really, really light colors and goes really, really deep. I love that it's got a little bit of cool, a little bit of warm. It's also got a little bit of like pinky and a little bit of mauve-y and a little bit of, you know, tan. It's more than just a regular old brown eyeshadow palette. Like I love this eyeshadow palette and would absolutely 100% repurchase it. The best part of that is that this sat in my collection for probably a year and a half before I ever touched it, because these are not my eyeshadows, right? These are not the colors that I wear on my eyes. But when I do want these colors, this is the palette that I want to pull from because it's such a beautiful formula and so easy to work with, which is saying a lot because I don't think any part of Too Faced is that way. The next palette I have is this one. This is the Juvias Place Garden of Juvias, and I feel like my little my number picker had it out for me because it's a whole bunch of pastels, right? This is also pastel, and so therefore, again, this would be no, I would not repurchase this. Again, I do think that this palette has some really beautiful eyeshadows in it. I think the shimmers in this palette are gorgeous. But the mattes are just kind of ho-hum. They're just kind of there. There's not really, in my humble opinion, a great matte in this palette, which is weird because I really do love Juvia's Place formula as a whole. But I think I said also in my video on this, my review of this palette, I don't feel like these are the same Juvia's Place formulated shadows that I fell in love with when I fell in love with Juvia's Place. So while I think this is a beautiful palette, and again, it's just something that is a preference for me, I don't love pastels. I should have never picked this up in the first place, and I would not repurchase it. The last palette that I have is the BH Cosmetics Zodiac palette, and this is an oldie but a goodie, but also an oldie that didn't come into my collection until probably 3 or 4 years after it had been out, because I was just like, I don't need this palette. I don't understand the hype behind this palette. And then my friend Lisa, who used to do videos here on YouTube as well, I haven't seen her populate a video in quite some time, talked me into it. And I am really ultimately super happy that she did, because these baked eyeshadows are like shimmers on crack. They are just crazy good, crazy beautiful. Probably the best for their time In my humble opinion, this is when I kind of fell in love with BH Cosmetics and started buying all kinds of palettes from BH Cosmetics. And now they're honestly some of my favorite eyeshadow palettes from the drugstore. Where I think that this palette falters a little bit is these mattes. They're not good. They're not great at all, but their shimmers are stunning, beautiful, and I would absolutely repurchase this palette. Those are the 10 palettes in my repurchase or not for this month. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. What palettes in your collection do you think are palettes that you probably wouldn't repurchase if given the chance today? Maybe some that you purchased forever ago, or maybe some that are actually pretty recent to you. I think of this Rose Metals, like I just purchased that probably, well, I purchased it when it came out, and it came out last year. And I mean, not that my makeup aesthetic has changed all that much in, a year's time, but of the 10 palettes that I had to choose from, these 6 are palettes that I wouldn't repurchase in my collection, and I probably could use the space. To be honest, some of them should probably land somewhere on my declutter list, but I would be interested to hear your thoughts down in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope that you did enjoy it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. It really does help us out here. I hope that you'll want to subscribe before you go. I'd love to welcome you in. Don't forget to hit me up in the comments section, but for now, y'all, that's it. That's all I got for you. I hope that you and yours are well, that you're safe, that you're healthy, that you're getting along as best you can, and that you are all loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, bye, friends.